My daughter has harbored a deep-seated hatred for me for years. I poured everything into her, making sure she got into a prestigious preparatory academy. Instead, she fell for a low-life thug. When I begged her to break up with him, she poured concentrated acid into my skincare products, burning my face beyond recognition. She didn't stop there. She orchestrated a massive cyberbullying campaign that drove me into a deep depression. To seize my remaining assets, she teamed up with her boyfriend to torture me to death and dump my body in the wilderness. When I opened my eyes again, my daughter was standing on the window ledge, screaming at me. "If you try to force us apart, I'll jump right now and end it all," she shrieked. I simply smiled. "I won't. You two are a match made in heaven." "You old hag, you better think long and hard about your next move. If you keep insisting I break up with him, I'm jumping. You'll have to watch your only child die right in front of you." I blinked, coming back to reality. My daughter Lydia was perched on the windowsill, her face twisted in a hideous scowl. This exact scene had played out in my previous life. It all started when I discovered she was dating a complete loser named Zane. He was a high school dropout who spent his days in grimy internet cafes, selling gaming loot to scrape by. In my past life, I tried to reason with her. I told her that her senior year was crucial for her future, and that she'd meet much better men in college. I poured my heart out, but she wouldn't listen. She even leaned her upper body out the window, threatening to plummet to her death. Back then, I was terrified, though I knew she was just manipulative. I eventually caved. She crawled back inside, looking like she'd won a prize. I promised to increase her allowance, and she promised to focus on school and stop seeing him. But after that day, she began to loathe me. She told everyone I was a monster who tried to push her off a ledge. My neighbors started avoiding me like the plague, and my own relatives grew distant. Even that wasn't enough for her. She stole chemicals from her school lab and mixed them into my face cream, melting my skin. The medical bills drained my savings. I lost my high-paying corporate job, and my husband filed for divorce immediately. My mother cried until she nearly went blind, and eventually passed away from a broken heart. My father's hair turned white overnight. Meanwhile, Lydia played the victim online and became a minor celebrity. She publicly claimed I was a controlling, malicious mother who couldn't stand her happiness. She told the world I disfigured myself just to frame her. I fell into a severe clinical depression, unable to eat or sleep, living in a tiny, rotted apartment while surviving on medication. Eventually, she and Zane got back together. To finally get rid of me and steal my insurance money, they kidnapped me. They tortured me for days before leaving my body in the woods for the coyotes to find. When my remains were finally identified, she had me cremated without a service. She even posted on social media about how karma always finds its mark. The internet cheered for her. I had worked myself to the bone for years to give her a life of luxury. I made sure she was on track for the Ivy League, yet she was a viper. For a guy she'd barely known, she destroyed my life, my face, and my soul. Fortunately, I've been given a second chance, and I have no intention of saving her this time. She doesn't want to study? Fine. Let her fail. She wants to date a gutter rat? Go ahead. I won't stand in her way. People can call me a neglectful mother if they want. In this life, I only care about my own survival. Hey, you old hag, are you listening? I'm not joking. I'll jump. Lydia's screeching voice pulled me back from my dark memories. I looked at her and gave her a genuine, warm smile. Why would I force you to break up? I think you two are perfect for each other. Lydia's expression shifted from rage to total confusion. What did you say? You're not going to stop us. I nodded calmly. That's right. Why should I? I only gave you advice before because I thought you should focus on graduating. I thought dating could wait until college. But if you're this passionate about him, I won't interfere. I won't force you to do anything. After all, it's hard to find someone who matches your energy so perfectly. If you let this one go, you might never find someone so similar again. Lydia stared at me for a long time, searching for a trap. When she saw I was being serious, her suspicion turned into a smug grin. She hopped down from the windowsill and rolled her eyes at me. Humph. At least you finally grew a brain, you ancient fossil. Since you've realized how much I mean to you, stop nagging me. Don't try to control my life anymore. It's annoying. I'm practically an adult. I don't need you breathing down my neck, got it? I replied softly. Understood. I will never bother you again. If you want to skip class, go ahead. If you want to play games all night, do it. If you want to play house with your boyfriend, be my guest. Lydia's face stiffened for a second. She seemed to sense something was off, but the thrill of her new freedom took over. Anyway, I'm not the only one who thinks Zane and I are perfect together. Lacey thinks so too. I caught the name immediately. Who is Lacey? Lydia answered carelessly. She's Dad's assistant at the office. She's been really supportive of my relationship. She said high school isn't too early to date. She told me all the good men are taken by the time you graduate college. She's not like you, stuck in the Victorian era. Living with you is honestly soul-crushing. Dad probably feels the same way. That's why he's always laughing and talking when he eats with her, but has nothing to say to you. You should really look in the mirror. I felt a chill of realization. I see. That explains a lot. In my past life, I suspected my husband was cheating, but I could never find proof. His friends and colleagues always covered for him. Every time I asked, they told me I was being paranoid. Now that I had a name, things would be much easier to track. I was the breadwinner of the family, making double what my husband made. We had bought our house in the Seattle suburbs together. My husband, Lance, didn't want to lose the lifestyle I provided. That was why he refused to divorce me even when we stopped sleeping in the same room. In my previous life, after I was disfigured and lost my job, he divorced me instantly. He took half the house and married another woman within months. At that time, I knew he'd been seeing someone. But in my state of deep depression, I didn't have the strength to find out who the new bride was. This time, I'm following the trail of the assistant. I'll make sure he leaves this marriage with nothing but the clothes on his back. Lydia was still rambling, praising the assistant while tearing me down. Hey old hag, do you even know Lacey? She's awesome. She's only 6 years older than me, so we actually have things in common. She even plays Overwatch with me. You're useless. All you do is talk about grades and breaking up with Zane. Man, I wish she was my mom. We'd be the happiest mother-daughter duo in the world. With Dad, we'd be the perfect family of 3. Her eyes sparkled as she talked about her fantasy future. I looked at her and said, well, congratulations in advance. Lydia looked puzzled. Wait, what? I stared at her, my lips slowly curling into a cold smirk. Your wish is going to come true sooner than you think. After that conversation, Lydia kept pestering me for an explanation, but I refused to say more. She eventually gave up and went back to being her entitled self. Anyway, it's the weekend and I'm done studying. I'm gaming with my boyfriend, so don't disturb me. I nodded. Sure. I won't bother you. She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. I'm ordering a massive pile of fast food later. You're not going to lecture me about health, right? I smiled. Not at all. From now on, your choices are your own. Finally. Freedom. Lydia cheered, clutching her phone as she bolted into her room and slammed the door, locking it from the inside. Soon I could hear her giggling. The flirty, suggestive things she was saying were stomach-turning, especially coming from a teenager. I shook my head and sighed. People choose their own paths in life. If this was the life she wanted, she could have it. Trying to save her would only lead to my own destruction again. I stood in the living room, looking around at the home I had built. I realized there was absolutely nothing here worth keeping. A daughter who wished for my death, a husband colder than a stranger, and a mother-in-law who only showed up to complain. I was actually impressed with my past self for putting up with it for over a decade. In this life, I'm throwing away the trash. It was Saturday. Lance worked during the day and had a dinner meeting that night. He didn't stumble home until 9 p.m., smelling like a brewery. Under the scent of beer and cigarettes, there was a faint, floral perfume of another woman. I played the doting wife and took his coat. While he wasn't looking, I slipped his phone out of the pocket. He didn't say a single word to me. He just washed up and passed out on the bed. I unlocked his phone and a notification immediately popped up from Lacey the assistant. Good night, babe. Sweet dreams. The chat history was empty except for that one message. He was smart enough to delete the rest. I checked her social media profile. It was filled with faceless couple photos holding hands, hugging, even photos from hotel rooms. Even without a face, I knew those hands. I knew that watch. I knew that was my husband. I threw on a coat, tucked his phone into my pocket, and headed out. I went to a tech repair shop and paid the owner a premium to recover his deleted call logs and messages. The results came back quickly. They were calling each other at least 3 times a day. Their chat history averaged hundreds of messages daily. I also asked the tech to unlock his hidden photo vault. As expected, it was a goldmine. There were explicit photos that would get anyone banned from public platforms. They were careful enough to keep their faces out of them, though. Before I left, I had the technician install a subtle tracking and recording app on the device. Then I went to a 24-hour printing shop. I printed every single photo from Lacey's social media, and every explicit shot from the hidden vault. The clerk's jaw dropped as the photos came off the printer. He looked like he wanted to say something, but my cold expression kept him quiet. I returned home, locked the thick stack of photos in a private drawer, and slipped the phone back into Lance's coat. The next morning, I woke up to Lance screaming at me. Why didn't you wake me up? Do you have any idea how late I am? Are you a literal pig? How can you sleep so much? Where is breakfast? What are Lydia and I supposed to eat? Lydia joined in, glaring at me. You're so bitter, old hag. Did you do this on purpose so I'd be late? Fine. I'm not going to school today anyway. My work started at 9 a.m., but they both needed to be out by 8 a.m. For 10 years, I had woken up at 6:30 a.m. to make a full breakfast, waking them at 7:10 a.m. to ensure they were out the door. Today, I didn't get out of bed until 7:50 a.m. A decade of sacrifice meant nothing to them. One day of looking after myself made me a villain in their eyes. It was almost funny. I looked at Lance coldly. Your salary is so low anyway. Why don't you quit and become a stay-at-home dad? Then you can make your own breakfast. I turned to Lydia. And as for you, I told you I'm done managing your life. If you need a wake-up call, ask your father. Lydia screamed. Fine. Don't you dare try to help me ever again. Lance's face was purple with rage. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I've had enough. Come on, Lydia. Dad's taking you out for breakfast. Lydia cheered. Yay. Dad's the best. I love you, Dad. Let's leave this old hag behind. They slammed the door on their way out. I walked into the kitchen and prepared a beautiful, nutritious breakfast just for myself. From now on, I was the only person I was taking care of. When I got to the office, my team commented on how much better I looked. Some of the women even asked what new skincare routine I was using, saying I looked years younger. I just smiled and said, I just stopped carrying extra weight. When you stop worrying about a cheating husband and a toxic daughter, your skin clears up remarkably well. I spent the whole morning focused on work. It was a critical time for a promotion. My company had a major client, and I was the lead on the deal. If I closed this, the corner office was mine. In my last life, I had prepared for months, only to be hospitalized by Lydia's acid attack 2 days before the meeting. My career had been flushed down the toilet. This time, nothing was going to stop me. During my lunch break, I visited a private investigator to officially track Lance. The photos I had were good, but I wanted high-definition proof where his face was clearly visible next to hers. I wanted to bury him. After that, I visited a family lawyer and had a divorce petition drawn up. On my way back to the office, Lydia's principal called me. Hello, is this Lydia's mother? Lydia didn't show up for her classes today. She called in claiming she had a fever, but a student saw her at an internet cafe with a boy with dyed hair. I'm worried she's getting involved with a bad crowd. This boy is a dropout and she Thank you, principal, I'm aware. I interrupted before he could finish. I've talked to her, and she's made her choice. I'm stepping back. I won't be managing her attendance anymore. If there are further issues, please contact her father. The principal sounded shocked. But she has so much potential. Her grades were great until recently. It's clearly this relationship causing the slide. This is a critical year for college apps. As a parent, you have to intervene. I let out a bitter laugh. I had thought the same way in my past life. That was why I tried so hard to save her. But Lydia wasn't a normal kid. Lance ignored her, Lacey encouraged her bad habits, so she loved them. I tried to guide her toward a future, so she hated me. This is a family matter. Thank you for your concern, but call her dad from now on. I said and hung up, blocking the number. I wasn't going to gamble with my life again for a girl who wanted me dead. Tuesday night, Lance got a call from the school. I heard it through the spyware. The principal tried to talk to him about Lydia's truant behavior. Lance didn't even listen for a minute before snapping. Look, man, don't bother me with this crap. If she doesn't want to go to school, that's her business. Then he blocked the principal too. It proved what I always knew. His love for her was shallow. He'd never do the actual hard work of parenting. I spent the rest of the week crushing it at work. By Friday, I signed the contract with the major client. The bonus, the promotion, and a week of vacation all landed at once. The private investigator also called with good news. He had a mountain of photos of Lance and Lacey together. The infidelity was ironclad. It was time for the final reckoning. Saturday morning, Lance announced he was taking Lydia out for a celebratory lunch. I knew it was a lie. Lacey wanted to see Lydia, and Lance was happy to play happy family with them. The investigation showed this had happened dozens of times before. Lacey wanted to win the daughter over to secure her spot, and Lance loved the thrill of the double life. It gave me the perfect window of time. I told Lance to pick up my parents and his mother on the way back, so we could celebrate my promotion. The second they left, I pulled out the photos. I began taping them to every inch of the living room walls. He was so afraid of his reputation being ruined. I was going to make sure everyone saw the truth. Once the decorations were finished, the PI sent me one final update. After their lunch, Lance had sent Lydia to a movie. Since he couldn't get seats together, he sat her in the front row while he stayed in the back. But 10 minutes into the film, he and Lacey slipped out to a motel across the street from the mall. I was stunned by the sheer audacity. They were doing this while Lydia was a few hundred yards away. I printed those latest photos and added them to the wall. By evening, I had prepared a massive feast. However, I only set 3 places at the table. Lance had picked up my parents and his mother, and was driving back. I sat on the sofa, listening to the car audio through the spyware. In the car, Lydia was trashing me as usual. She complained that I was obsessed with her grades, and that I was trying to starve her by not cooking. Lance played the role of the tired saint, pretending to scold her while letting her say whatever she wanted. My mother-in-law, who always hated me for only having one daughter, was having a field day. She insulted my upbringing and my parents. My parents, bless their hearts, were apologizing for me. They kept praising Lance for being such a patient, wonderful husband. My mother-in-law bragged, "Well, my son was raised right. He's not a failure like your daughter." Lance didn't defend me once. He just said, "It's okay, we're family." I just tried to be understanding. Thinking about how my parents died in the last life made my eyes sting. When I was disfigured, Lance had been heartless, and Lydia had literally pushed my begging mother to the ground. Back then, my parents finally saw their true colors, and the shock killed them. All those years, I had lied to my parents about how good my marriage was just to keep them from worrying. Today, the lies were ending. The sound of the key in the lock signaled their arrival. The chatter stopped the moment they walked into the living room and saw the walls. What is this? My mother gasped, moving closer. "This is disgusting. Who would do this?" My father's face went pale. "That's Lance. But that woman isn't our daughter." My mother looked at the photos, and the realization hit her like a physical blow. Her jaw dropped. Lance turned white. Without even taking off his shoes, he rushed forward, trying to rip the photos down. But there were hundreds of them. He couldn't get them all. My father roared, "What the hell is this? Explain yourself. Why are you cheating? What did my daughter ever do to you?" My mother pointed at a photo of Lance, Lacey, and Lydia at lunch. "You spent the whole ride here badmouthing my daughter, but you're the one who's rotten." Lydia looked confused. "Dad, is that you and Lacey? Weren't you watching the movie with me? And why are you posing like that? Are you guys together? Why didn't you tell me? I thought we were just friends." Lance finally snapped. Veins popped out on his neck as he screamed at me. "Heidi, did you do this? What is wrong with you? How could you show this to the parents and our daughter?" I laughed. "Oh, so you know it's inappropriate? Then why did you do it?" Lance had no answer. He just glared, trembling with rage. My mother-in-law stepped in, hands on her hips. "So what if he cheated? My Lance is a man. Men have needs. It's no big deal. You're making a scene over nothing. You people from the country are so dramatic." I corrected her calmly. "Actually, we're from the city. Your family is the one from the middle of nowhere, remember?" Despite the obvious truth, Lydia still chose to side with the villains. "Lacey is amazing. If Dad loves her, it's true love, and true love isn't a crime. You old hag, you're just a pathetic loser. You couldn't keep Dad's love, so now you're trying to ruin his happiness just like you tried to ruin mine." My father looked like he was about to have a stroke. "Shut up. Just shut up." I'd seen enough. I sat back on the sofa, crossed my legs, and tossed the divorce papers onto the coffee table. "Sign it. You get nothing. Go live with your true love." "What? Divorce? No way." My mother-in-law lunged forward, pointing a finger in my face. "You crazy bitch. My son did you a favor by marrying you. You couldn't even give him a son, just that useless girl. You want a divorce? Fine. But you're not taking a penny. My son earned all this money. You don't deserve it." I smiled and shook my head. "Then we'll see you in court. I have evidence of infidelity and financial misconduct. When this goes public, your son will lose his job." The old woman clearly didn't understand how the law worked. "Fine. See you in court. I'll tell the judge you failed your duties as a wife." "Mom, shut up." Lance shouted. She glared at me. "You witch. What did you do to my son to make him this scared of you?" Lance dragged his mother into the bedroom before turning back to me. "I'll sign, but on one condition. You have to choose between the assets and the girl. You aren't getting both." I had been waiting for that exact move. He thought I'd be too desperate to lose Lydia. He thought I'd give up the house and my savings just to keep her. But he didn't realize that I didn't want her anymore. Lydia, not understanding the gravity of the situation, beamed. "Dad, I knew you wouldn't abandon me. We don't need her blood money. Let's go live with Lacey." Lance acted the hero. "I'll never let her take you. If she wants the money, she has to let you go." Lydia hugged him. "I love you so much, Dad." Lance stared at me, certain he had won. "Think carefully. Do you want the money or your daughter?" I grinned. "Sign the papers. The agreement says you take Lydia and leave with nothing." "That's exactly what I want." Lance's face looked like he'd just swallowed a fly. Lydia cheered. "Yes. Finally. Sign it, Dad. Let's go be a real family." Lance stammered. "Why don't you want her? You were obsessed with her. You treated her like a princess." I looked him in the eye. "You said you loved her more. I'm being generous and giving you what you want. Why aren't you happy? Don't you actually like her?" Lance was speechless. Well. Lydia snapped at me. "Stop trying to tear us apart, you bitter old hag. Dad and I are a team. You can't break us." She turned to Lance. "Right, Dad? You'll always love me, right?" Lance's smile was forced and pained. "Yet of course, honey." I tapped the table. "Sign. I'm hungry." Under the pressure from both me and his clueless daughter, Lance scribbled his name. I pointed to the door. Take your mother and get your stuff out. The divorce will be finalized Monday morning. I want you out by tomorrow. I turned to my parents with a warm smile. Mom, Dad, let's eat. I made all your favorites. Lydia stomped over to the table. Why are there only 3 plates? What about me? I shrugged carelessly. Ask your dad. He's in charge of you now. By Sunday evening, Lance, his mother, and Lydia were packed and standing in the hallway with their luggage. Lydia held her designer bags proudly, a smug grin plastered across her face. Enjoy your big empty house, old hag. While you sit here rotting alone, I'll be living my best life with Dad and Lacey. I didn't utter a single word. I simply pointed at her bags. Those clothes, the shoes, and those bags were all purchased on my credit card. Last month. I said, my voice deadpan. Leave them behind. Lydia's jaw dropped. What? You can't take my clothes. They're mine. I bought them. In the eyes of the law, until you're an adult, anything purchased with my funds remains my property unless I gift it to you. And I'm officially revoking all gifts. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. Or should I call the police and report a theft right now? Lance's face darkened. He tried to maintain his heroic facade in front of his daughter. Fine. Leave them, Lydia. Dad will buy you brand new ones tomorrow. We don't need her garbage. Lydia stomped her foot, forced to dump her designer clothes and hand over her high-end phone, keeping only her basic school uniform and a few cheap tees. Her eyes burned with hatred as she glared at me, but she forced herself to laugh. Whatever. Dad is rich anyway. They slammed the front door behind them. I locked it, went straight to the master bedroom, and called a renovation crew to replace the entire locks and strip away every piece of furniture Lance had ever touched. An hour later, I tuned into Lance's phone via the spyware app one had installed. The reality of their happy family was already crashing down. Lance had taken his mother and Lydia to Lacey's apartment, a tiny rundown, 1-bedroom rental on the outskirts of town. Lacey was standing in her entryway, dressed in a silk robe, staring in absolute horror at the 3 people carrying stuffed trash bags into her living room. Lance? What is this? Lacey's voice vibrated with panic. Why are your mother and daughter here? The divorce is happening, babe, Lance said, trying to sound suave as he reached out to hug her. I walked away from that bitter bitch. I left her with nothing but the empty house. You what? Lacey shrieked, pushing him away. You walked away. What about the savings? What about the suburban house? What about your half of the assets? My mother-in-law chimed in, tossing her dirty duffel bag onto Lacey's velvet sofa. Oh, don't worry, dear. Lance gave up the house to keep custody of Lydia. But it's fine. My son makes good money, and now we can all live together. Lacey looked like she was about to faint. Live together? In my 1-bedroom apartment. Lydia, completely tone-deaf, pushed past Lacey and plopped down on her bed. Hey, Lacey, I'm starving. The old hag didn't feed me dinner. Make me a steak. And buy me the new iPhone tomorrow, okay? Lacey's face twisted in pure disgust. She hadn't signed up for this. She wanted a wealthy, middle-aged manager to pay her rent, buy her luxury bags, and give her an easy life. She never intended to be a stepmother to a spoiled, demanding teenager and a maid to a bitter country mother-in-law. Through the phone's microphone, I listened to the quiet, rising tension, sipping my wine in my peaceful, silent living room. The nightmare was just beginning for them. On Monday morning, I walked into the corporate office looking radiant. My promotion to regional director was officially announced during the morning board meeting. The entire team cheered, and my boss personally handed me the keys to the spacious corner office. Meanwhile, Lance's world was falling apart. While I was accepting my promotion, I sent an anonymous, heavy dossier to the HR department and the ethics board at Lance's company. It contained high-resolution photos of Lance and his assistant, Lacey, abusing company travel expenses for hotel stays, alongside receipts showing Lance had approved illegal bonuses for Lacey using corporate funds. By 11 a.m., security guards escorted Lance and Lacey out of the building. Both were fired on the spot for corporate embezzlement and gross misconduct. The spyware on Lance's phone caught the chaotic fallout. Lacey was screaming at him in the parking lot. You idiot. You told me you had everything under control. Now I'm blacklisted from the entire industry. Lance was hyperventilating. Lacey, please. We still have each other. I'll find another job. Find another job? Lacey barked, her eyes wild with rage. You're 45 years old, fired for embezzlement. Who is going to hire you? And you have no savings because your ex-wife took everything. Get away from me. Lacey broke up with him right then and there. She went back to her apartment, threw Lance, his mother, and Lydia out onto the street, and changed her locks. Suddenly homeless and unemployed, Lance was forced to use his last credit card to rent a filthy, cramped basement unit in an unsafe neighborhood. Lydia was in utter shock. She went from living in a 4-bedroom suburban home with a private yard to sleeping on a pull-out couch in a dark, damp basement that reeked of mold and sewage. "Dad, this place is disgusting," Lydia shrieked, refusing to touch the grimy mattress. "Where is Lacey? Why aren't we staying with her? And where is my new phone?" Lance, exhausted, broke, and humiliated, finally lost his saintly composure. Slap. A sharp, ringing sound echoed through the phone speakers. Lance had slapped Lydia across the face. "Shut up. Just shut the hell up," Lance roared, his voice cracking. "You spoiled brat. If it wasn't for you constantly nagging about that deadbeat boyfriend and demanding things, I wouldn't have been so stressed. It's your fault." Lydia held her reddened cheek, tears springing to her eyes. She looked at her father in disbelief. This was the hero, Dad, who promised to love her unconditionally. The moment the money ran out, he hit her. My mother-in-law didn't defend Lydia either. She sat on a wooden stool, crying about her ruined life. "I told you, Lance. You should have kept that bitch Heidi around. At least she paid the bills. Now look at us." Lydia ran out of the basement, crying hysterically, straight into the arms of her deadbeat boyfriend, Zane. Without my financial support and strict guidance, Lydia's life disintegrated at record speed. In my past life, I spent hours every night reviewing her homework, hiring elite tutors, and ensuring she ate balanced, healthy meals. Now living in a basement with an unemployed, bitter father and a screaming grandmother, Lydia completely abandoned school. She spent her days at grimy internet cafes with Zane. Since Lance had no money to give her, Lydia began begging Zane to buy her meals. But Zane was a high school dropout who earned pennies by selling illicit gaming software. He didn't want a girlfriend who was a financial drain. "Hey Lydia," Zane said one evening, blowing cigarette smoke into her face as they sat in a dark alley behind an internet cafe. "Your dad is broke and you're useless. If you want to hang out with me, you need to bring some cash." Lydia panicked. Zane was her entire identity, the bad boy she had threatened to D4. "Zane, I don't have money. My dad lost his job." "Then find a way to get it," Zane sneered, resting his hand heavily on her shoulder. "Or I'll find a girl who actually has value." Desperate to keep her loser boyfriend, Lydia turned to the only person she thought she could manipulate, me. 2 weeks after the divorce, I was leaving my office building when I saw a disheveled, skinny girl standing near the glass doors. It was Lydia. Her hair was greasy, her school uniform was stained, and she looked exhausted. The arrogant, entitled smile she used to wear was completely gone. When she saw me step out, wearing a tailored designer suit and carrying an expensive leather handbag, her eyes lit up. "Mom," she yelled, rushing toward me. My 2 bodyguards, whom I had hired the moment the divorce was finalized, instantly stepped forward, blocking her path. Lydia froze, staring at the guards, then at me. "Mom, tell them to let me go. It's me, Lydia." I stopped, looking at her with cold, indifferent eyes. "Miss, I don't know who you are. Please step back." Lydia's face went pale. "What do you mean you don't know me? I'm your daughter. Look at me. My legal divorce decree states that Lance has sole custody and full parental responsibility for you," I said smoothly, checking my gold wristwatch. "I have no daughter. If you continue to harass me, I will file a restraining order." "Mom, please." Lydia burst into tears, dropping to her knees on the sidewalk. Just like my poor mother had done in my past life. "Dad hit me. We're living in a disgusting basement. There are cockroaches everywhere. Lacey kicked us out, and Dad has no money for food. I haven't had a proper meal in 3 days." She reached out, trying to grab my shoes. "I was wrong, Mom. I don't want to live with Dad. I want to come home. I'll study hard. I'll break up with Zane. Just let me come back." The crowd of onlookers began to gather, whispering. In my past life, I would have felt my heart break. I would have held her, cried with her, and forgiven everything. But my mind instantly flashed back to the agony of concentrated acid burning through my flesh, the agonizing darkness of clinical depression, and the cold, damp wilderness where she left my body to be devoured by animals. My eyes remained as hard as flint. "You told me that true love isn't a crime," I said softly, my voice carrying clearly over the quiet street. "You told me your dad and Lacey were your real family, and that I was just a bitter old hag." Lydia sobbed hysterically. "I was stupid. I was lured by them. Mom, please." "You're nearly 18, Lydia," I replied, stepping around her kneeling form. "You made your choice. You stood on that windowsill and threatened to die if I didn't let you be with your father and your boyfriend." I looked down at her with a cold, terrifying smile. "I'm just being a good mother and respecting your choice. Enjoy your freedom." I stepped into my waiting luxury sedan. The driver closed the door, blocking out her screaming, desperate cries as the car smoothly pulled away into the evening traffic. Rejection drove Lydia into absolute madness. When she returned to the basement, Lance screamed at her for failing to beg money out of me. He threw a plastic bottle at her head, cursing her for being a useless leech. Driven to the edge by hunger, abuse, and Zane's constant pressure for cash, Lydia decided to take matters into her own hands. She remembered where I kept my spare house key, hidden under a fake rock near the garden shed of our old suburban house. She assumed I hadn't changed it. She planned to sneak into my house while I was at work, steal my jewelry, my high-end bags, and the emergency cash I kept in the safe, and use it to run away with Zane. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Lydia and Zane broke into the backyard of my home. Zane brought a crowbar, while Lydia used the key to open the back door. Hurry up, Zane hissed, shoving her inside. Find the safe. Grab everything. Silver and gold. Lydia ran straight to my master bedroom, her eyes greedy. I know where she keeps her Rolex and gold chains. We're gonna be rich, Zane. They kicked open the bedroom door and froze. The room wasn't empty. Sitting on the armchair near the window were 2 uniformed police officers, alongside my family lawyer and myself. Overhead, a high-definition security camera hummed quietly, recording every second of their break-in. I had changed the locks the day they moved out, installed a state-of-the-art security system, and kept track of Lydia's movements through my private investigator. I knew the moment she planned this break-in with Zane. Lydia, I said calmly, taking a sip of warm tea. Breaking and entering, grand larceny attempt, and conspiracy to commit burglary. Lydia's face drained of all color. The crowbar fell from Zane's trembling hands, clattering loudly against the hardwood floor. Mom, Lydia shrieked, backing up. I was just coming home to get my old stuff. I wasn't stealing. You brought a high school dropout with a crowbar to get your stuff? My lawyer asked coldly, holding up his tablet displaying the live feed of Zane trying to pry open the bedroom closet door 30 seconds ago. Zane's cowardice surfaced instantly. He lunged forward, grabbing Lydia by the neck and shoving her forcefully toward the police officers. It was her. Zane screamed desperately, trying to save his own skin. He tricked me. She said this was her house and that her mom told her to come get the jewelry. I didn't know we were breaking in. She made me do it. Lydia turned her head in utter horror, staring at the boy she had ruined her life for. Zane, what are you saying? You told me if I didn't get you $50,000 you'd break up with me. Shut up, you crazy bitch. Zane spat, kicking her leg. Officers, arrest her. She's the mastermind. The police officers didn't waste time. They pinned both Zane and Lydia to the floor, snapping silver handcuffs over their wrists. Lydia thrashed frantically, her face pressed against the cold floor, screaming at me like a wounded animal. Mom, save me. Tell them it's a mistake. I'm your daughter. You can't let me go to prison. I stood up, walked over, and knelt beside her. I looked into her tear-streaked, terrified eyes, whispering softly so only she could hear. Do you know what concentrated acid feels like, Lydia? Lydia froze, her pupils shrinking in terror. What? What are you talking about? Do you know how it feels to have your skin melt off your face while the daughter you gave everything to laughs and posts videos of your suffering online? I asked, my voice chillingly pleasant. Do you know how it feels to be dumped in the cold wilderness for animals to eat? Lydia stared at me, a deep, instinctual horror washing over her. She realized, with terrifying clarity, that I knew everything. I knew what she was capable of. You? She stammered, her voice shaking violently. I gave you a chance at life, Lydia, I whispered, straightening up. And you chose to be a viper. Now pay the price. Officers, take them away. I am pressing full criminal charges. The trial was short and brutal, with airtight security footage, crowbar physical evidence, and Zane's eager confession blaming Lydia for the entire operation. Both were convicted. Because Lydia was nearly 18, and the attempted theft value exceeded $200,000, she was sentenced as an adult to 3 years in state penitentiary. Zane received 5 years due to his prior criminal record. On the day of her sentencing, Lance and his mother showed up at the courthouse, looking homeless and ragged. Lance had been working double shifts as a night shift delivery driver just to pay rent for the basement. His hair had turned gray, his posture stooped, looking 20 years older. When he saw me standing outside the courtroom in an Italian wool coat, accompanied by my healthy, happy parents, Lance broke down. He rushed over, falling to his knees before my father-in-law. Please, Lance sobbed, grabbing my father's shoes. Help us. Heidi won't listen to me. Lydia is going to prison. My life is ruined. My father, who now knew the full extent of Lance's infidelity, financial abuse, and cruelty, didn't hesitate. He raised his heavy leather boot and kicked Lance hard in the chest. Get away from us, you piece of filth, my father roared, his voice booming through the courthouse corridor. You cheated on my daughter, stole her hard-earned money, and ruined your own child. You deserve to rot in hell. My mother-in-law tried to scream at my mother, but courthouse security stepped in, grabbing both Lance and his mother and dragging them out of the building for disturbing the peace. Before Lydia was led away in her orange jumpsuit, she requested a final 2-minute meeting with me in the visitor room. I sat behind the thick glass partition. Lydia sat across from me, her hair shaved short, wearing the coarse orange prison uniform. Her wrists were bound in heavy iron cuffs. She picked up the plastic telephone receiver, her hands trembling. I picked up mine. Mom. Lydia's voice was hollow, stripped of all energy, all arrogance, all life. Is this what you wanted? This is what you chose, I corrected smoothly. I hated you, Lydia wept, tears dripping onto her orange collar. I hated you because you were always making me study, always telling me what to do. I thought Dad and Lacey were cool. I thought Zane loved me. She pressed her forehead against the glass partition. Lacey blocked Dad's number the second he lost his job. Dad beat me when he got drunk. And Zane shoved me to the police to save himself. She looked up, her eyes filled with an unbearable, suffocating regret. You were the only one who actually cared about my future. You were the only one who truly loved me. And I ruined everything. Yes, I said calmly. You did. Can you ever forgive me? She sobbed, clutching the phone like a lifeline. When I get out in 3 years, can I come home? Can we start over? I looked at the girl who, in another lifetime, had melted my face with acid and watched me die in the dirt. I gave her a gentle, warm smile. No, Lydia. When you get out, you will be 21 years old, a convicted felon with no high school diploma, no family and no money. I leaned closer to the glass, my tone icy cold. You will spend the rest of your life working minimum wage jobs, struggling to pay rent in grimy basements, just like the life you chose with Zane. That is your karma. I hung up the receiver, stood up, and walked out of the room. Behind the thick glass, Lydia's hysterical, heartbreaking screams echoed, but I didn't turn back once. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Under my leadership, my company expanded internationally. I was named one of the top female entrepreneurs of the year, acquiring a stunning seaside estate where my parents and I lived in peace and luxury. My father's health flourished. My mother took up gardening and painting, her face always lit up with joy and laughter. One sunny afternoon, I was attending a charity event in the city center when I saw 2 familiar figures near the trash collection area behind a fast food restaurant. An old woman in ragged clothes was digging through a grease bin for discarded plastic bottles. A middle-aged man with a severe hunchback was hauling heavy grease traps, his clothes covered in filth, being screamed at by a young restaurant manager. It was Lance and his mother. Without my income, without a career, and burdened by bad credit, Lance had collapsed into the lowest strata of society, working backbreaking physical labor, 12 hours a day just to afford a tiny room for him and his mother. As I watched, a young girl in a faded, greasy uniform stepped out of the back door of the kitchen, carrying a heavy trash bag. It was Lydia. She had just been released from prison, with a felony record and no education. No decent company would hire her. She ended up working as a dishwasher at the same fast food joint, earning minimum wage alongside her broken father. Her face was dull, her skin rough, her back stooped from heavy labor. The bright, ambitious preparatory school girl she once was had vanished entirely. As she tossed the trash bag into the bin, she caught sight of a sleek black Rolls-Royce parked near the curb. The rear window rolled down slightly. Lydia stopped. Her eyes met mine through the tinted glass. I was wearing a tailored silk blouse, a diamond necklace glittering at my throat, my skin radiant, looking 15 years younger than my actual age. Beside me, my mother was smiling, handing me a glass of iced juice. Lydia stood in the filth of the alleyway, holding a trash bag, looking at the life of luxury, peace, and warmth she could have had, the life she had personally thrown away for a low-life thug and a cheating father. A single tear cut through the dirt on her cheek. I looked at her without hatred, without anger, without pity. I simply raised my glass, took a gentle sip, and rolled up the window. The Rolls-Royce smoothly pulled away, leaving them behind in the dust and grease of the alley, forever trapped in the nightmare of their own making. My life was finally, truly my own.